some important developments in our war against the Chinese virus. We'll be invoking the Defense Production Act just in case we need it.
Why do you keep calling this the Chinese virus? There are reports of dozens of incidents of bias against Chinese Americans in this country. Your own aide, Secretary Azar, says he does not use this term. He says ethnicity does not cause the virus. Why do you keep using this? A lot of people say it's racist.
It's not racist at all. No, not at all. It comes from China. That's why.
Welcome to Bil-Ahdan. I know we are in a very tough time these days with the corona pandemic. We try to do our shows, through online and commuting, and this interview is going to be on Skype. So bear with us. It's been a very, very rough ride, and as we know, I mean, Muslim Americans, they've been on the spotlight since 9/11 for a long time, and I think they've been on self quarantines for years with racism and Islamophobia and all of that. And but this pandemic really changes a lot of things. And last week, President Trump is asking people if it's okay to wear a scarf, which is hijab or veil. So it will be a common now and bringing hijab as a cool things in America. When the media and Trump and his Secretary of State starting calling it Chinese virus and the yellow virus, and we can see the attacks and hateful culture now is picking up on Asian Americans, and it's been the history of this country to find the fall guy, Japanese, the German, the blacks, the natives, the Arabs, the Muslims, Chinese, and so on and so forth. I have no idea what is this in American culture that always look at the other group, at the others, and those others will be under scrutiny and a suspect of. Here, our guest today is Mandy Meisner. She is Anoka County Commissioner, and also they elected her, elected Asian American a couple of years ago. But now, in her county and all over the country and states, she noticed there is Asian American been targeted by hateful and attacks. And a little bit. Welcome to Bil-Ahdan, Mandy. It's very nice of you in your busy time. I know you'll have more contact with the Asian American community. Those years ago, what changed?
I think that the Asian American community is, unfortunately, you had mentioned, President Trump referring to COVID-19 as the Chinese flu. We have all heard his derogatory references to this public health pandemic. And unfortunately, I have heard of folks in my community and beyond that unfortunately have been targeted in public, usually in very innocuous ways. But it is it's very unfortunate to hear that, and so I am gathering information about that and collaborating with others about changing this messaging and educating to not provoke this kind of derogatory, referencing to Asian Americans.
Mandy, Asian Americans, they've gone a long way. I mean, they, almost they become white. Their economic prosperity, their earning is much higher than the average, even white Caucasian. They are well established, and still, they haven't really escaped this racism and hatred. Rhetoric that Americans tend to fall into in a time of crisis. Were you prepared for something like that, or expected? Were you surprised?
No, absolutely not. I don't think any of us were prepared for something like this. And I am surprised. It's unfortunate. To your point, Asian Americans are a huge fabric of the society. We've got multi generations living here, owning a variety of different businesses. So to kind of backtrack to some of this public discriminatory language is shocking to me when I hear about it. Yes.
Is there any active or changes of how the Asian Americans should really go there and get a hold of their narrative?
Well, and that's a great question because I will tell you a lot of these kinds of harassments, they're not being filed in a formal way. Most of what I hear about with the experience is, you're at the grocery store or in public, and people will just make kind of an offhanded, derogatory comment about, thanks for bringing this virus, or maybe physically backing away from an Asian American. So those kinds of things, but they're strangers. They're not doing, bodily harm. They're not vandalizing your property. It is more, like I said, kind of innocuous. But then what ends up happening is that, people aren't necessarily filing a formal complaint. They're not sure if it's even valid or not. So I hear about it, and then, as I've been talking about it with other Asian Americans and other minority groups as well, I hear it anecdotally, but it's not really being, like I said, formally filed a lot. So it's a tricky situation to grab hold of. So that's what I'm hearing about privately. Formally, you would ask, am I doing anything? There is a group of elected officials, primarily Asian Americans, that are working on some messaging right now. Potentially coming up with a formal statement, and simply just to, state, racism and harassment against Asian Americans is not okay. But there's no formal statement that is formed as of yet, but we are a group that is currently being created, and we're just brainstorming right now about what can be positive messaging and what can we do about this to try to stop it.
There are other groups that have gone through this, and they have developed their own techniques of dealing with it. Are you planning on talking to these other groups, the Muslim community, African Americans, and have this conversation? As you said,
Right.
It's much bigger than Anoka, and much bigger also than Asian American. It's widespread.
Right. Well, you are absolutely right about that. Discrimination is not just a certain ethnic group, unfortunately. And so for my district, District 4, which is Columbia Heights, Fridley, Hilltop, and part of Spring Lake Park, I do have also a large Muslim group. You'd mentioned them. And so as for myself, yeah, absolutely. I am open and always looking to brainstorm with other people who have had to deal with this. What are the solutions that they have come up with? What are they finding now specifically around COVID-19, if anything? So yes, absolutely. I am always all ears to listen to other people's experiences, and because you're right, this is not new to Asian Americans, but certainly to a whole wide group of folks.
You've been in your position for what, a couple of years?
No, well, I just finished my first year.
Oh, really?
So January was year one, but I campaigned for a year, so it seems like it seems longer.
It's been a long time. I mean,
right.
And do you have 3 more years to come?
That is correct. So for this seat for county commissioner, it's a 4-year term.
And your plan future in 3 years?
As far as my big picture goals for, what I would like to do for county commissioner, a lot of my work has been very focused on diversity and inclusion. So being the first person of color, I think it is so important to not only break down barriers for leadership that is already at the county. We have about 2,000 staff employees, but also to encourage and to invite other people of color into the county, whether that's a staff position or whether that's as an elected official. But, when you don't have leadership that looks like who you represent, there will always be a disconnect. So I've had a couple of projects that I was really focused on around that kind of work, and that's been on hold now with COVID-19. Again, we're just buckling down and just really focusing on essential services. There's a lot of people that still need economic assistance, medical assistance, food security issues. Homelessness has always been a challenge in Anoka County, but now, as you can imagine, it has been twice as hard for us as well as around the region. So right now, I don't know if I really answered your question,
Oh, yeah.
but
It's there somewhere.
okay.
No, this is wonderful. A lot of people don't even know what the commissioner actually do, and your
Right.
job is always the daily basis, interacting with the community, and you do the nuts and bolts if people business survivor and all of that. Tell us a little bit about your relationship, like our governor Walz. He's really exercising much competent leadership than Trump, and I think not just him. A lot of governors and local officials, they taken the lead since the federal government failing us and politicizing everything, and this idiot in the White House is really taking us an autopilot, and there is no driver there. So it's scary stuff. So
Well, first, I do want to also agree and give my compliments to Governor Walz. I have been so impressed with his leadership and the way that he is informing the public, being calm about it, but very factual and providing data and having to really make some hard decisions. I mean, shelter in place, closing the doors on a lot of businesses in terms of they can't operate as normal. Those are hard decisions that are going to affect our local economy for a long time. But he's leading is what we have to do in order to manage this public health epidemic. And as far as our relationships, so I would say that they're very good. Our staff and our administrator is doing a very good job about being in good communication with all of our law enforcement agencies, school districts, really any and every governmenting body that we are part of. And then I will say for my own self, and as every commissioner gets to decide to do, I've also been in good contact with my city mayors, my law enforcement, our chiefs of police. I have a phone call with them fairly regularly, just to give updates, just to receive information. And so I think that's really important when in a time like this, you want to make sure that everyone's on the same page. And if there is an issue that comes up, then that you are more prepared to deal with it swiftly and then, do the right thing.
how's your daily life? How you doing? You work from home?
Yep. So for the most part, we are either doing video conferencing like this, or when I do need to go into the county, we are absolutely practicing social distancing, which is right. I mean, a different way of doing business for sure, but primarily, yeah, working from home. We're being told to stay home as often as possible and just not be out in community if we can help it.
Really, it's really hitting everybody in so many different ways. And do you think this is going to change anything in the way you relate to each other and consumerism? And, I don't know what Nike is going to do for us now, or iPhone, or BMW. Those things don't make sense
Right.
anymore. And
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think things will change. I mean, the good thing is we are forced, all of us, to slow down, right? I mean, I know that I personally and professionally choose to be busy and work. Like that's just kind of who I am. And now that that's not really an option for me
And
in
it's
the
not
same
bad.
ways, I'm really forced to all right, I gotta, either think about things or just do things in a much slower pace. And on social media, I mean, people are baking bread again. People are writing letters again and doing things that were considered, I think you mentioned old-fashioned before, but things that were considered old-fashioned. And so I do truly think that after this is all done, we might find culturally that we have all sort of appreciated some of these things of incorporating in the back in our life, and hopefully will slow the pace down in general. I think distraction is just everywhere these days, bright shiny objects.
Mandy Meisner, the Anoka County Commissioner is Asian Americans. We talked about how the Asian American been singled out in this rough time in their lives. We wish you well, and we wish you. We see you. This is not going to go away anytime soon. Hopefully, we see you again.